We want to welcome everybody to Getting Back to Business, a virtual town hall. You should be muted upon joining this webinar. A recording of this webinar will be sent to you via email, and it will also be viewable on the Calvert Library YouTube link. You can see the YouTube is www.youtube.com/c/Calvert Library. You can submit your questions throughout the webinar by using the Q&A feature. The slide says using the chat feature, but you should have access to the Q&A feature on your screen. Questions will either be addressed in time during the Zoom or in a follow-up email. If you have additional questions after the webinar, you can go ahead and email Kathy.McAdams, MACADAMS @calvertcountymd.gov. There will be a survey posted after the webinar, and we would really appreciate your feedback. And again, my name is Michaela Clark. I'm a public services librarian here at the Calvert Library, and we are so pleased to once again partner with the Calvert Health Department and Economic Development in support of our local businesses in getting back to business. I'm going to turn things over to Kathy McAdams, the Business Retention Specialist at the Department of Economic Development, and she's going to take things from here. Thank you.
Thanks, Michaela. I'm Kathy McAdams. Before I turn it over to our Health Officer, Dr. Polsky, he's going to provide an update of COVID-19 now that we're in phase 2. I would like to just launch a quick poll that I would appreciate all the participants to take a moment to respond to. And this will let Dr. Polsky know who is here and what businesses are being represented. So you should see the poll now on your screen. If you just take a minute to answer, and then I will share the results so you guys can see who is in the room as well. We're actually on the Zoom virtual meeting. So we have about almost all of our participants. I'll give it 15 more seconds for you to take a minute to vote, and then I'll show the full results and turn it over to Dr. Polsky. Okay, so it looks like a lot of 39% of you are nonprofits, and and a bunch of others, and about 12 are professional services. So hopefully everybody can see the poll. I will now close the poll, and I will let Dr. Polsky speak. And then at the end, if you have any questions that you would like to put in the Q&A, I will address them to Dr. Polsky. Dr. Polsky?
All right, thank you, Kathy. And thank everyone for joining today. I know everybody is plenty busy these days, so we'll try to make it worthwhile use of your time. I just want to start out by saying that for the most part, I think people around the county, both business owners, managers, and customers have been really doing a good job. We've gotten relatively few complaints. I talked to my counterparts around the state, and I will say in some counties, things are much more contentious and problematic than we've had in Calvert. I think part of that goes to the people who have organized this web conference today. So the folks from the library and from county government who have provided this platform so that you can get information directly, you have an opportunity to ask questions. And there should be plenty of time, or hopefully plenty of time today for you to ask questions. The only thing I really wanted to focus on before we just turn it over to all of you is the need for people to, and this goes primarily for restaurant owners and managers, the need for you to have a permit through planning and zoning that the county does require anyone who is starting outdoor dining to submit a plan, a site plan and a seating plan to planning and zoning. They have a specific email address for that, which most of you are probably aware of because you deal with the county in other respects, but it's PZ as in planning zoning, pz@calvertcountymaryland.gov. That plan will also be reviewed by our health department staff just to make sure everything is in line. There's not only the seating plan, but also things change with restroom access, so how restrooms are being cleaned. It's important to keep in mind that although customers do not need a mask while they're outside eating, they do need a mask on when they go inside the building to use the bathroom. So there's other things like that that not every restaurant manager owner may be aware of, and it gives us all a chance to make sure that everyone is educated properly. Keep in mind that there are complaints received from members of the public. It's not just law enforcement or inspectors from the health department, but anytime that we receive a complaint from any member of the public, we have to investigate. That's not the time that we want to start getting involved. We would much rather, again, educate like we're doing today and make sure that you and your staff are able to operate properly. Once that plan has been reviewed by planning and zoning and okayed, a copy goes to the liquor board. So for those of you that serve alcohol, which I know is quite a number of you, it's important. I'm sure for a lot of you, it's just as important as anything that law enforcement might do, what the liquor board may do as well. And also for anyone who puts a tent up, there are specific requirements for that. So that would get a separate permit than just a plain old site plan. So for those who haven't started doing outdoor dining, again, to think ahead, give a little bit of time for that. And also what qualifies as an outdoor space, which, you know, like everything that's regulated is not always as straightforward as it may seem. And you don't want to go through a whole lot of planning and then find out way down the road that the space that you're intending to use does not meet the state qualifications for what constitutes an outdoor dining space. So not a lot has changed over the past week. There have been a few things. The governor has allowed nail salons to reopen, tattoo parlors to reopen, massage therapy businesses to reopen. I presume that people in those industries have gotten good guidance, but if there are questions, you're always welcome to contact our environmental health staff at any point. Email is great because our inspectors are very busy these days. We still have our regular responsibilities, and on top of that, everything that goes along with coronavirus. So if you email, it gives our staff a chance to respond back when they have a few free minutes here and there. Trying to contact people on the phone oftentimes ends up on phone tag, and everybody gets frustrated. So, but if there is something that really you need a discussion, we'll do our best as quickly as we can to get back to you by phone. So I think those were really all the major things that I had to discuss just in a general way. And mostly I just wanted to make myself available for questions that people may have.
Well, I actually have a quick question for you. Can you discuss the current Calvert numbers?
As far as infection rates?
Yes, please.
Okay. So I will say that numbers are, I'm not trying to dodge the question, I'll answer it, but I just want to start out by saying that numbers are much more complicated than it might seem. There's no historical basis for this. You know, we can talk about things like salmonella infections and say that this year, you know, we've gotten X number of salmonella cases, and we can say over a decade that this is significantly higher or lower. The tests are the tests themselves have been the same, but who gets tested has been changing dramatically. So when we compare back to say mid-April, when it seems like we probably were getting close to our peak in number of infections, the only people getting tested were those who were severely symptomatic, meaning hospitalized, or had major underlying health conditions. So the percentage of people who tested positive was very high. And then as we transitioned into late April, early May, tests became more available. People with mild symptoms, which could have been allergy symptoms or could have been just a common cold or something else, were starting to get tested. So our percentage positive was dropping. And then we got to a point where they started now that they're doing surgeries, they're testing everybody before surgery. And those are people who doctors think clearly don't have coronavirus, or they wouldn't schedule them for surgery. So the percent positive keeps getting diluted. So it's difficult to just look on that. But I would say that when I look at the numbers with our epidemiologist, that when we take a lot of factors into consideration, it seems like we've had a gradual but progressive decrease in infection in the county over the past 6 weeks, or essentially since about mid to late April. And what we're a little bit concerned about at this point is that as people start to get out and about more, and in some cases they're congregating in certain settings, that there's new opportunity for the virus to spread. So we certainly still have the virus in our county, and as everyone's aware, through the whole state. And it's just a question of how we continue to minimize the amount of transmission of the virus. Business owners have a role to play there. So, you know, you all have a self-interest in minimizing infection. The biggest factor is if there is a sudden increase in infections, and the governor may start to shut things back down again, which none of us want to see. But there's also always the potential that an outbreak could happen in a business, and then that's about the worst PR that you could get. And for your staff as well. Certainly, again, I think we talked about this on the previous webinar, that you can't run your business or your nonprofit unless you have healthy staff that can consistently be there to serve customers and patrons. And so I was in private practice for most of my career. I know how valuable my staff was every step of the way. So every guideline that we have out there, sometimes they're legal requirements, sometimes they're guidelines. They're meant not just to protect the community in general, but they are valuable in terms, and I'm talking dollars and cents valuable to your businesses as well.
Thank you. And now I'm just going to ask you some general questions that are coming up on the chat. One of them is, can you address the current status of daycares?
So we are waiting for more guidance or information from the state. And I will just throw out there that what the governor has allowed is for counties to be more restrictive, but has not allowed for counties to be more permissive. And so in the case of daycares, right now it's open for, I'm blanking, for essential workers, for their children, which has, of course, very much diminished the number of daycares that are open. It's obvious that now that most, not quite all, but most businesses across the state are allowed to reopen, that all those businesses, or almost all, have workers who have children, and they need daycares to reopen. So my expectation, and actually I thought that probably this past Wednesday when the governor had a press conference, that the primary topic was going to be daycares. I was not expecting, honestly, nail salons and tattoo parlors. So all I can say at this point is we don't get any heads up on any of this. And so unfortunately, I can't predict when the governor and his close advisors may decide that more daycares can be open and under what parameters. The reality is that our staff at the health department find out at the same time the public finds out. And then what we've been doing, again, along with our county colleagues, is to then get guidance out as quickly as we can. I will talk really quickly, Kathy, before you move on, that because we anticipated that daycares would be allowed to open up more fully, last week we did put out guidance to daycares. We sent that over through county government, through the daycare regional coordinator, to send out to all the local daycares. It's not comprehensive, but it hits what we thought were the most important factors as far as reopening. And so if there are daycare providers who are listening in on this webinar, if they did not get, it was just a one-page guidance, it was a pretty dense one page. If anyone did not get that, then they can contact either Danita at county government, or they can contact on the coronavirus line at our local health department, which is our regular number, 410-535-5400, and then extension 334. Again, we're happy to talk to you, get your email information, and we can email that out to you.
So I have two questions about masks. One is, do food service workers have to wear masks? And the other one is salons. So if you're in a getting your hair done, does the salon worker have to wear a mask?
Yes, on both of those. And so the latest governor's order that came out this previous Wednesday on June 3rd specifically restated that all food service workers need to wear a mask at all times while they're on the job. And that goes both for restaurants and in grocery stores. And for the businesses that just were allowed to reopen this past week, so nail salons, massage therapy, and tattoo parlors, they are, all employees are required and customers are required. The only exception would be if the service itself somehow prevented. So let's take, for instance, when people are getting their hair cut, there may be a few moments where people may need to remove a mask for part of that service to occur, but then they need to then immediately put their mask back in place. So the employee, there would be no reason for the employee not to have the mask on. It's just a question of would the customer momentarily be able to remove a mask if needed, and the answer to that is yes, but only as long as necessary.
The next question is it okay for restaurant staff to use hand sanitizer on their gloves, or should the gloves be replaced instead of using hand sanitizer?
The gloves need to be replaced. And that's always been a concern for us that people start to think of their gloves as some kind of shield against infection. And gloves in this case are no better than skin. In a restaurant setting, the most important thing is washing with soap and water. The hand sanitizer never gets everywhere it needs to. And if there's concern that the gloves could be contaminated, they just need to go. People should wash their hands and then put on a clean pair of gloves.
Thank you.
And I would just throw out there also, I don't think any of us would want to eat a bunch of hand sanitizer. And so if you're putting hand sanitizers on your glove and then you're touching food and other things, you're putting the disinfectant on the food.
So another question is coming in about gyms, and I think the answer is that you're not getting any forewarning from the governor, so you're not sure, but if you want to address it.
Yeah, so unfortunately, the same as with daycares, that we have gotten absolutely no heads up as to when gyms may be allowed to open or under what limitations. So at the moment, I know this is frustrating for a lot of people because it's not just gyms, but it's other fitness facilities. But at the moment, unless something can be done outdoors and then still it's limited to 10 people in an area, and those people must be spaced at least 6 feet apart. But as far as any indoor, when it comes to fitness or gyms, that's still prohibited. And I don't know if it's going to be later this week or a month from now.
I also have a question, and I know Dr. Polsky, you and I have traded emails a couple of times on this question, but can you address dance schools?
So that goes under fitness. And so just like think about it like an aerobics class, that you have people coming together doing physical activity. It's probably not only difficult, but I would say potentially dangerous to wear face coverings while someone is physically active. You end up potentially with heat exhaustion or heat stroke. We certainly don't want to change one potentially dangerous health problem for another. So at the moment that dance classes are, again, limited to outdoors, it's that 10-person rule, including the instructor or instructors, and the participants have to be at least 6 feet apart.
So I now have a question from a restaurant, and is asking, we're anticipating 50% capacity is going to come probably hopefully with the next phase. And they want to know, can we start circulating, or can you start circulating information before the announcement comes out so they can start putting guidelines into place? So
it might be 50%, it might not. Restaurants, the reason that there's a holdup on indoor dining is that it is different in terms of infection transmission than a typical retail space. If you think about when you go in to buy clothes, or you don't sit in the same spot potentially for an hour or more. And so I'm not saying, and again, I have no information, it might end up being 50%, but I can certainly see where seating requirements may be different than just 50% of fire marshal capacity. And so it's really difficult. It's not that we don't believe me, it is a complete frantic pain, to put it mildly, when we have to respond within 24 hours, because they're allowing businesses to open on Friday and not making an announcement until Wednesday afternoon. We would much rather be able to give guidance ahead of time. But the reality is that, again, to this point, we have not been given any heads up as to what the operating conditions are going to be. And so the guidance that we've put out to this point, and we do have guidance specific to restaurants and bars, that at the moment still holds for general consideration as restaurants or bars plan for indoor service. But the specifics as far as capacity, and I'll just quickly say that bars and restaurants have different fire marshal capacities for the same space. So if you had, say, 200 square feet, bars have double the capacity of restaurants, which from an infectious disease standpoint doesn't make any sense at all. But fire marshal capacity is completely predicated on how quickly you can get people out of a burning building. It has nothing to do with the potential to transmit a respiratory virus from one customer or one staff member to another. And again, what's applicable in a general retail setting where people are browsing and moving through stores, you can't universally apply that to places like restaurants and bars.
Thank you. And now that swimming pools are open, can outdoor swimming lessons be done?
So they can. We did provide some suggestions, some recommendations. And again, I would, if it's a one-on-one instruction, that should not be a problem. If it is a group, if it's a class instruction, again, you're limited to 10 people. The swimmers have to be spaced just like any outdoor recreation. So in some pools, 10 participants will be fine. And in others, you might only be able to have 6 people being adequately spaced. So yes, that's permissible. Again, just have to think of the general guidelines of never more than 10 people in an area and having adequate space in between.
So I'm going to ask 2 more questions and then I will let you go, Dr. Polsky. The first question is, there seems to be confusion and discrepancy about the types of gatherings and events can occur and under what conditions. Fireworks, some canceled, some not. Organized events, some running, some not. What are the rules about small gatherings and who can gather?
So it's very clear that festivals, parades, all those kind of events are still prohibited at this point. It's supposed to be that's supposed to be in stage 3, where you start to have those types of events. I will say that some of the stage 2 activities kind of blurred into stage 1, and there's some things that are supposed to be stage 2 that haven't happened yet. So when I say that the roadmap, I think was a roadmap to recovery, those milestones have not been adhered to consistently. But at this point, again, the maximum gathering other than for religious services are 10 people.
Thank you. And the last question is, can you give any guidance about charter boats, sightseeing cruises, anything like that?
So they are allowed, and again, it's a 10-person maximum, and the boat would need to be large enough to allow people to distance. So for some boats, it might only be 3 or 4 people on there, and for others 10. And again, the 10 includes any crew.
Thank you. Okay, I had one more quick question that just came in that I would like you to answer. If you just drive-in events, I know that we're seeing them at Running Hare. Is there any guidelines to drive-in events?
People need to stay in their cars. The only exception is for people to use the bathroom, but otherwise they need to stay in their vehicles. And otherwise, off the top of my head, I can't think of anything in particular. But it clearly does not mean that people can drive in, get out of their cars, and then go sit on lawn chairs and clusters. That is not permitted.
Thank you, Dr. Polsky. We appreciate your time today.
My pleasure.
As we transition over to our Economic Director, Kelly Robertson-Slagle, I'm going to do one more poll that you guys will all see coming up. We would appreciate you taking time to participate in this second launch. You should see it now on your screen. Also, while you're taking the time to vote, if you have other things that you would like to put in the chat that Dr. Polsky hasn't had time to answer for you, or if you think of something as you're watching the rest of the webinar today, we're happy to take these questions and get back to you personally with answers.
And I'll stick on the rest of the webcast. If there's anything that you need me to chime in on, I will be happy to.
Thank you, Dr. Polsky. Okay, so this is the end of this poll, and I would like to share the results with you. You should be able to see the results on your own computers. I think the biggest concern that we're seeing is changes in customer needs and demands by 45%, with a close second of financial resources to stay in business. So our next presenter is Kelly Robertson-Slagle, who is the Director of Calvert County Economic Development, and she is going to share some information on getting back to business, a virtual town hall. So I'm actually going to turn it over to Kelly and share her slides.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And thank you, Dr. Polsky, for kind of starting the show here and giving us an update on the latest guidance that we received from the governor. And Dr. Polsky's exactly right. You know, we get little to no time when they make announcements, but I will tell you, we've had a fantastic working relationship. We did previous to this, which I think just has grown since we've been working through the COVID response, not only with his team, but also the folks in planning and zoning, in trying to get the information clarified and out to our business community as soon as possible. So what I wanted to talk to you about today was to provide you with some insight on what are some of the business services that we have been reminding you about what we have been providing, and talk to you a little bit about what we will be providing over the next coming weeks, months, as we move through our recovery phase. Kathy has generously offered to be my navigator for my PowerPoint. So if it's okay, Kathy, we'll go ahead and get started.
Okay, I think you should be able to see the slides now. Let me share my screen.
Okay, so looking towards the future, if you go back one there, Kathy.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Okay, looking towards the future over the next couple of months, I think we all, and some of it, you know, the poll that you just answered certainly touched a lot of what you see up here. We really have an uncertain future. You know, if we had a crystal ball, we'd all be in much better shape right now. But I think we can all agree it's difficulty projecting what the recovery time is going to look like, even what the recovery itself is going to look like. The rate of recovery is unknown. We don't know if it's some industry sectors may bounce back quicker than others. In my personal opinion, you're going to see a little bit of that based on the roadmap to recovery that Dr. Polsky previously talked about, with some industries being able to open up sooner while others are lagging a bit behind because of some of the legal guidance and some of his executive orders. We still see potential for extreme risks remain in investment, in jobs, in development within Calvert County. And certainly all of that translates into taxes, and then certainly consumer confidence. There's some questions about business expansion here in the county, retention, and then some of the attraction opportunities that we work on a daily basis. We are seeing some bright spots. I will tell you, not all is bad. Danita Boonchaishri, who's our deputy director and is responsible for a lot of our business development activities, she has been constantly working with a lot of the developers and commercial contracting folks that were in our pipeline prior to this. And so far, 100% are still moving forward with their projects. So I did want to mention that there are some pretty good projects that are still slated to come online, and we're starting to see them come back, get back to working through some of the regulatory requirements and those sort of things. So that's a positive sign for us. So we are excited about that. Okay. So some of the success indicators that we're looking for as we move towards an economic rebound: confidence in the financial market. And by that, I mean the local banks, regional banks, and national banks making investments back into the business community, back into just the financial market and as a whole. Dependable revenue streams for our local businesses, and certainly a lot of you know that firsthand. Return of customers and consumer confidence. How quickly are your customers returning to you? Do they feel comfortable about what they're seeing as they're returning to your businesses? On the flip side of that is returning of your employees. Several employees went out on unemployment. We've heard a lot of feedback from folks that, their employees went on unemployment, and with the CARES funding, they got the additional $600 a week. Some are, not necessarily wanting to jump back into the workforce because they're that extra $600 a week is a big deal for them. So we're working through the nuances of that right now. I will tell you, if you have an employee who is currently out on unemployment and you have officially offered them in writing their position back and they do not accept that, you do have the right to reach out to the state's unemployment office to notify them, and that will cause a case review. So it's a personal decision as an employer if you want to go that route, but that is something that is available to you to encourage those employees to come back to their previous positions. Ability to meet new customer demands. That I kind of got that loud and clear as one of the number one things in your survey that you did prior to when I got started. I think a lot of customers, we've been doing this for a couple of months now. They've gotten used to this new way of interacting. Some of them, like me, miss the face-to-face. I miss going into restaurants. I miss being around people. But other folks kind of like the curbside pickup and, calling ahead and some of the nuances that we've had to put into play here. So it's looking at it to say, is this a new revenue stream for me? Is this a new way that I can pivot my business to be able to continue to capture that market as well as go back to my traditional business format? So the ability to be able to do that quickly to maintain those customers that they've been able to gain through this process is very important. Ability to ensure public and employee safety. Again, we talked a little bit about that. This is a little bit different than what businesses have dealt with in the past, because it's not just your customers being safe, but also your employees, the backside of your business. What are you doing to provide those safety precautions that are so important that Dr. Polsky talked about? If you don't have your employees, a lot of times you're not going to be able to operate your business. So it's first and foremost that you need to make sure that you have those safety precautions in place. And then certainly second wave of the virus and other interrupters. We're certainly seeing a lot of other man-made interrupters right now that have certainly hit us with what's going on around the country as of late. So those are the types of things that we're looking at. So what are we doing? The next couple slides I'll go through, I'll talk to you a little bit about some of the things that we've put into place and some of the stuff that we are working towards. Wanted to mention we have created a virtual business recovery center, and you'll see the website up there. This is your one-stop shop. One thing I wanted to mention is this is updated daily. So any information that we get from the governor's office, from Dr. Polsky's office, from the Maryland Department of Commerce, Maryland Department of Labor, all of our partners that are providing up-to-date information on a daily basis, we are going through that information and we are posting it on this Navigating Our Recovery website. I say that because there's a lot, I call it noise. There's a lot of noise going on. And as a business owner, sometimes it's hard to weed through all of this. This is really your one-stop shop to be able to go get up-to-date information. It's structured and it's detailed in a really easy to follow format. So please utilize that to get updated information. And especially after Governor Hogan does his press conferences and provides updated information, be sure to check here because that's where you're going to be able to get the legal guidance that you're seeking and information from Dr. Polsky and his staff on local recommendations and requirements that are going to be put into place. We're going to continue to work with emergency management. One of the things that I like to let our business community know is that we, meaning economic development, has a seat at that table, and we will continue to be there with them to make sure that our local emergency management operations realizes and understands what is going on with our local business community. It also allows us an opportunity to hear what's going on the emergency management side of the house to get that information out to our businesses as well. So it's been a great partnership. We also are ears to the ground on any federal and state grant programs, different things that we may be able to apply for to bring resources that are so needed to our local business community. And then mobilization of a navigation team with industry-specific representation. So what does that mean? We have reached out to about 30, give or take, don't quote me, but about 30 different folks, citizens, business sector folks, resource partners, and invited them to be a part of our navigation team. And really what that means is they are going to be our eyes and our ears and our focus group as we continue to move through and develop some of this programming. It was so important to get folks directly from industry because they're doing it on the day-to-day. I saw and heard some of the restaurant questions, charter boat question, a couple other questions in there. That's why it's important to have industry specific representation, because we need to hear those questions. We need to be able to know where your thought process is, what's working, what's not working, so we can navigate and kind of tweak our response to make it most effective for our local business community. We're going to continue our virtual town hall discussions with the Calvert Library. I personally feel like they've been very effective. We've gotten a great response. I know we're about 60 folks that are participating today. Our last one, we had about 60 to 70 on that one as well. It seems like it's a format that's well received. We'll be able to invite Dr. Polsky in and then have our staff talk about different resources as we move through. So look for those virtual town hall discussions and certainly participate if you're available to do that, or watch the follow-up YouTube video. We also will be developing specific workshops featuring best practices. And by that, I mean, it won't be so much on these are the resources that are available to you. It'll be, okay, we're going to the next step now. Maybe it's going to be a focus on financing, or maybe it's a, money management, or possibly marketing in the next normal, which is what a lot of people are calling it. Not the new normal, but the next normal. Really thinking outside the box and being able to bring those best practice training to you that are specific to COVID, to get you back and try to get you moving forward. So we're looking at several different options right now, and stay tuned. We are going to be having an announcement here real soon on a training series that you will be able to log into. And again, all of our training, our offerings are always free of charge. And it will be virtual and it will be recorded. So if you're not able to make it on, live, you'll be able to see that information after the fact. We are also working on, we call it seasonally based buy local programs. By that I mean encouraging folks, especially going into the holiday season, if you are purchasing or looking at doing gifts for your family, look local first. We always try to encourage that, but it's now more than ever, it is so important to be able to support our local economy and our local shops here in Calvert County. So we're really going to be honing in on some messaging on that over the coming months as we go into the holiday season. And not just, think outside the box with some of this with your purchasing. It may be a gift certificate to go on a charter boat cruise, or certainly a restaurant, certainly, gifts and things like that, but maybe something that's not so tangible, again, encouraging them to think outside the box, but definitely keep those dollars locally as we move through. LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, Zoom events. I mean, we're really kicking it up a notch as it comes to our virtual communications. Some of you may have seen that Calvert County government launched a LinkedIn presence last week. So we will be utilizing that to be another platform to be able to get information out. Certainly Facebook, we do a lot of advertising on Facebook. YouTube, again, talking about those workshops and things, having it out on YouTube, out on our YouTube channel, and then certainly continuing with our Zoom events like the one today. So if there's one thing that you can take away from my discussion, if you forget everything else that I said, please remember this slide. Let's see here, 58 participants that are on the slide today, you're getting a sneak peek at a grant program that we will be launching publicly to the local for-profit and nonprofit business community this Wednesday, June 10th. So to give you a little bit of background, through the CARES fund at the federal level that was approved, the state of Maryland received some CARES funding that then flowed through the state of Maryland and then was distributed to each of the 23 jurisdictions around the state of Maryland based on population. So Calvert County, their portion of the CARES funds, the federal CARES funds, came down to $16 million and some change. That $16 million was then divided in half. So the first $8 million came down through to the health department with Dr. Polsky and his staff. And that first $8 million was meant to reimburse for COVID-related expenses that were accumulating actually very quickly between staff and supplies and different things. So that was strictly for a reimbursement to the county and the services are municipalities, the hospital, different things like that. The second $8 million came to Calvert County government. And with that $8 million, the county developed a plan on how they were going to spend it. And there was a lot of things included in that. As a part of that, economic development we requested and we were approved for $1.25 million. And community resources, which is liaisons with our nonprofit community, was submitted and was approved for an additional $500,000. So with that money, we have developed or created the Calvert County COVID-19 Small Business and Nonprofit Relief Fund grant. And by grant, for those of you that are online, grant means it does not have to be repaid. This is a grant program for our local small business community. What our plan is, so this is where please take notes. Our plan is Wednesday, June 10th, we will be doing what we call a pre-announcement to the community to allow you time, and it'll have all the information, the Q&A, what's required, who qualifies, all of the nuts and bolts to the program. It will also allow you to register online, so you have to pre-register. The grant applications will be done through an online portal, so it's no hard copies. You don't need to come in. We're trying to make this as easy of a process as possible with the quickest turnaround to be able to get this money to you as soon as possible. So June 10th is the pre-announcement. You will have from June 10th to June 17th to go online and pre-register and also gather your information. There will be some required information that you'll need to provide to us to upload into that portal so that way we can do your application review appropriately. And then on June 17th, the portal will become live and you will be able to go online and put in your application and submit those additional information. And it's just uploading a document, which a lot of folks online, I'm sure, are already familiar with that process. But please know that if you have any questions at any time while you're working through this process, our staff in economic development is here to help you. So as you'll notice on the slide, economic development has 3 different categories of which you can fall into. One is the single owner sole proprietor, and that means you're just one. You're one person, you have no additional employees. You're eligible for a grant of $1,500. The next level is the micro business. So that is the owner plus 1 to 15 full-time equivalents. And again, we provide that formula, so that way it's real easy for you to calculate who that is or how you can get to those full-time equivalents. That grant is for $5,000. The next level is small businesses, and that's 16 to 30 full-time equivalent W-2s, and that grant is for $7,000. In addition to that, on Jennifer Moreland's side of the house, she's Director of Community Resources. She has a separate grant available for a nonprofit with a maximum amount up to $10,000. So I wanted to kind of leave it. I'm sure you have a ton of questions. I wanted to kind of just preview, give you a little bit of background, give you a little bit of insight, but know that on Wednesday, June 10th, so day after tomorrow, we will be making that pre-announcement and you will be able to see all the Q&As, the background information, everything you need, and then you will have plenty of time to be able to reach out to our staff to ask specific questions. So under business retention, a couple things we wanted to mention that we will be deploying. We will be creating an online, we're calling it a dashboard, you can call it a tracker, a couple different terms there, so that our community can track and follow our progress. And by that we mean we want to make sure that folks know this is the amount of people that we're assisting. These are the types of questions and the types of assistance we're providing. But I would say most of all, we want to make sure that folks can go online and see who has applied, not who, it's confidential, but the numbers, the types of businesses that are applying for the grant program and the numbers of grants that we were able to provide directly and deploy out into our local business community. So that's under, I'll say, construction right now, and we'll be getting that out. It will be housed on that Navigating Our Recovery website. So stay tuned for that. We also have in development what we're calling a springboard program, an enhanced business consultation program. Excuse me. So to give you a little bit of background on that, we do day-to-day business assistance, and I feel like we're extremely effective at that. But every once in a while, we will come across a business, usually one of our larger employers, definitely if something happened and they happen to close down, would have what I would consider a pretty strong negative economic impact to our community. What we mean by the Springboard program is be able to pull together a team of resources specifically to triage with that particular business. So it may not necessarily just be us as economic development professionals. We may be reaching out to local attorneys, local accountants, some of our other for-profit service providers in our community to come and be a part of this triage team or the Springboard team, to be able to work one-on-one with this particular business to get them over the hump as it pertains to the challenges that they have faced with COVID. So it's like a notch up from our regular consulting, but it's really being able to deploy and bring together a group of folks locally and almost a neighbor helping neighbor situation to be able to get these businesses springboard over their problem and get them moving forward and hopefully in a positive manner. So stay tuned for that. We hope we won't have to use it, but we want to definitely be prepared if we do need to use it. As far as tourism, Hillary Daly, who's our tourism specialist, has been doing a phenomenal job doing research with our surrounding, around the state, with her counterparts around the state, but also surrounding states. And some of, tourism best practices, what are they seeing? How quickly are travelers rebounding? And what does the next couple of months or even year look like for the tourism industry? And one of the things that we're hearing and she's hearing is the word staycation again. I think a lot of us probably remember that during the last recession where folks were, still wanting to have a vacation with their family, but maybe didn't want to spend the extra funds to go out, out to other, travel, whether it be Florida or the normal places that folks go on vacation. So she's been working with her team and with some of our sites and attractions, and I know some of them are online here for this virtual town hall, to develop some really fun staycation type event, activities and things that folks can do with their families to stay local, working to promote safe and making sure that it's communicated and that, people can be reintroduced to their own community or even surrounding. So folks from DC coming down or Alexandria coming over or just within a reasonable driving distance. And with that, we're doing targeted Facebook ads, including our different tourism industry divisions. So like art and history, a lot with the bed and breakfast travelers, a lot with the hotel overnight packages, different things like that. We are going to be doing a restaurant week with a twist. I will not spoil the surprise for Hillary, so stay tuned for that, but we are pretty excited. And then we are going to be doing, bumping up our hashtag marketing with Shop Calvert. Talked a little bit about that earlier. Explore Calvert, and my personal favorite is Go Beachless. Some folks may not want to travel to Ocean City and all that's going on there. And maybe they want to come down, towards Calvert and see the bay and experience, go charter boat fishing and experience some of the water that we have here in Calvert. And then last but not least, I'll wrap up and then we'll go, is the Calvert Ambassador Program. That's an intensive training program that Hillary and her team are doing with frontline staff at our different attractions. And again, it's really giving them language and ways that they can interact with that travel consumer to promote that we're safe, that there's a lot of outdoor space, that you can come and you can experience Calvert in a very safe way. And that's been very popular, and that will continue over the next several months. Agriculture, I hope most of you, if not, please join the community, but we've had a wildly successful online virtual farmers market with the Calvert County Farmers Market Association. What a phenomenal group. They pivoted quickly. They realized that the timing of the COVID pandemic was just not good for them. They were getting ready to get into their market season. So they really jumped in very quickly and went from face-to-face market to virtual market literally overnight, and have had phenomenal support from the local community. So continue, if you do participate, continue to do that. If you don't, please join in and let your neighbors know, because the more that we can support our local agricultural community, the better off we all will be. So again, we want to communicate that to, what the farms are open, where it's being grown, and directly how consumers are able to get those products and that produce. In addition to that, we do have one drive-through market, and that is at the hospital. It's been a phenomenal partnership. That's kind of cool too. If you haven't been able to participate, you might want to try that. You literally drive up, you put your window down, you tell the folks exactly what you want to order. They literally pack up your produce and your products for you, and they bring it right back to your car. You have your financial transaction and you go on your way. It's that easy, and it's a really cool experience. So again, if you may not want to do online, but may want to try it in person, please support those folks there. And that farmers market is on Tuesdays. I believe, Kathy, jump in. I think it's 4 to 6:30 are the hours of that, but we'll follow up with that so that way you.
It starts at 2:30, Kelly.
Okay. Nonprofits, again, I know there's a couple of you on there. We are working extensively with Jennifer and her staff in community resources on pulling together some information on how to restart. And by that, we mean not so much how do you restart your nonprofit, but more, we know that a lot are dependent on some of those large scale fundraising events. For example, Garden and Lights, or the different things that go on at the Calvert Marine Museum, the concert series, things like that, that are really important to the day-to-day operations, the financial aspect of the day-to-day operations. So we are working, pretty extensively to try to get best practices. So when it's time for that to, when the governor allows that next stage to happen, we can get that information out to our nonprofit so they can deploy or continue to deploy those really, really popular events and activities with those large groups in a safe manner, and that people want to continue to support it and feel comfortable to come to those types of events and activities. We're constantly looking for loan and grant opportunities through the CARES Act, through FEMA, and through other programs. I know Jennifer's been actively working on a CDBG grant that I believe, I think commissioners are reviewing it tomorrow, and it's supposed to be submitted this week. That is an ongoing process, and we will continue to do that, again, to be able to bring relevant programming to our local nonprofit and for-profit community. And then, providing training and best practices, that will be ongoing. Workforce, continuing, one of the things that I guess personally, I didn't realize that we were going to be a big part of, but I'm glad that we have been able to provide this resource. But folks that, residents, citizens of Calvert County that have applied for unemployment and have hit some hiccups, I'll call it hiccups to be polite, through the process, we have worked one-on-one with several to help navigate, get them answers, help with clarification questions, and we will continue to do that. Normally, we work with the business. In this case, we've been working with the business and the individual resident or employee to be able to provide that information. And we will continue to work with the Career and Technology Academy and the staff over there, really phenomenal staff, and the College of Southern Maryland. Both of those organizations, within a week of all of this starting, reached out to us and said, what can we do? How can we help? Please keep us in mind. We want to be able to be a part of the process to help our local business community. So we have been keeping them in the loop with everything. And I do see where we will be developing some additional partnerships specific to COVID as we move through the next several months. Virtual job fairs, that's a one-on-one situation, but as we're getting ramped back up, when we hear, going back to those navigation teams, if we're hearing if a particular industry sector is having a hard time filling jobs, we can quickly pull together a virtual job fair with a particular industry sector and promote the heck out of it to be able to get those jobs filled and get those businesses back open and operational. So I'm kind of wrapping it up here. This is not an easy talk. I've said this from the beginning. For folks that have heard me talk I've spoken several times to different organizations. I'm pretty matter of fact. Folks that know me know that. And I can tell you, we have a very dedicated and committed staff in economic development. I'm certainly blessed to work with each one of them every day. we have not stopped. And by that, I mean from the day that this happened all the way through county government. I know they were closed for about 2 weeks. We have not stopped. We have been manning the phones, answering emails, making connections almost 24 hours a day since the beginning. And we will continue to do this every day until we get to the next normal. Again, I'm using that term because we have a passion and we love our business community. And we don't want anybody to fall through the cracks. So if I can ask one thing of you that are online, obviously you've reached out to participate, so you have been in connection with this kind of circle of services. But if you have colleagues or other business owners or neighbors that you feel like are falling through the cracks here, please encourage them to come and reach out to our staff. We want to know, the sooner we know, the better we will be able to assist them. So please keep that in mind. That's my one ask of you today. Navigation team, I've talked about them several times. I mean, we picked this particular group for a reason. They're very passionate about the community. They're very passionate about the industries with which they are in, and they want to, they want to see everybody be successful. So I think it's a good team. It's a really good team, and I think we're going to be we're going to get some good progress with that particular group. And then pent-up demand of our citizens and our visitors. I think we're starting to see a little bit of that now. I've been through Prince Frederick a couple times in the middle of the day, and I'm like, wow, where are all these people? So folks I think they're starting to come back, and we're even seeing it in some of the economic impact numbers that we're seeing that are coming out, unemployment numbers, things like that. It's albeit slow, we're starting to see it shift a little bit. So we're going to continue to monitor and work with our partners and work with our local business community until we get past this. We were really good before. I mean, we weren't perfect, but we were really good before. And I think the fact that we are in a very close-knit, small community, it's personally why I love working in Calvert, and I know a lot of my coworkers feel the same way, that we can have a personal touch and we look out for each other. And I don't know how economic development directors in larger jurisdictions do it, honestly. I like the fact that we can have a personal touch and really know our business community. So keep in touch with us, answer questions. I'm here, I'll answer what I can today. But if you think about something after the fact, this is our contact information. Sandy Bentley is answering our phone calls every day, so you will get an actual person on the phone. And the info at eCalvert, we prefer you to email that. We have somebody monitoring that email, and we get direct referrals to us. And we have been, I would say, almost 100% effective in responding within 24 hours or less. So you will actually be able to talk to somebody. I know we've all heard horror stories at the state and even at the federal level, but in Calvert County, you actually get to talk to somebody if you have a question. So I will wrap it up there. And Kathy, if you can shoot questions our way, I will do my best.
Sure, Kelly, thank you. Let me see. We did have some questions come up. Let's see. So one of the questions is, I think it's directed towards Dr. Polsky. Can you explain opening up of the museums?
You want that in one sentence or two?
You can put it in as many sentences as you like.
Yeah, museums are a little bit complex because it's a combination of people kind of floating through and people typically congregating either for lectures, or you have a docent who's explaining. And so let's take the Marine Museum as an example. So if they have a fossil display, you might have 15 people huddled in a very tight space looking at the fossils and all that. So so museums are more complicated in some ways, but I think the same basic principles apply, that you can't have more than 10 people in an area. Area is difficult to put an exact definition on, but So for a lecture, then you have the lecturer and you could have 9 chairs, and each of those chairs needs to be spaced at least 6 feet apart. And so the same kind of principles of how many people can be in an area, how close individuals can be to each other still applies. Gift shops are tough because gift shops and museums are usually in very, very tight spaces. And so the number of people who will be allowed in the gift shop is going to be significantly minimized. Probably in most places, it would only be maybe 2 customers in there at a time. And then I don't think we have any museums in the county that serve food as a normal part of their operation, but that would be, you know, so for some museums, that would be an issue as well, where there's still no indoor dining. So it's a bit of a case by case. I know we've had discussions, ongoing discussions with the people at Amory Gardens, and we're having starting discussions with Calvert Marine Museum. So I would say if there are specific museums in the county that have questions, they're welcome to contact us, and we can talk about their particular situations.
Thank you, Dr. Polsky. Kelly, I think this question might be directed towards you. Is the county providing community access programming for Comcast?
I'm sorry, repeat the second half of that.
I'm sorry.
The access programs for.
Is the county providing community access programming for Comcast?
I'm not sure if you can give me a little, whoever asked the question, if you can give me a little bit more background on that.
Oh,
And we could definitely follow up with you to get you an answer on that.
I think, there's one additional question. Dr. Polsky, there's a question about, can the indoor pool open?
Okay.
So the only indoor pools that can open are if they're part of a hotel. I don't make up the rules. So if you're about to throw a tomato at your screen, so in general, like the aquatic center cannot open at this point. It would be considered an indoor fitness facility.
And I apologize, Dr. Polsky. I know it was somewhere in the notes here, and there's been so many questions coming up that I kind of lost track of it. But I think somebody asked about dance lessons or personal lessons. If you do one-on-one indoor, is there any indoor allowed at all, I guess, maybe lessons? So
there are no indoor fitness classes allowed. I'm rolling through my head all the governor's orders, which we've seen, you know, multiple permutations over the last few months, but there are no indoor fitness classes allowed.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Polsky. I appreciate it.
Sorry, I
know it's hard to keep up with everything.
Here, but yeah.
Hey, Kathy, I'm sorry. I went and I read. I didn't hear Comcast. What I heard you say was something completely different. So I do have an answer to that. I apologize. So to answer your question, our Technology Services Department and our Department of Communications and Media Relations are looking at some potential federal grant funding as it relates to CARES for expansion of Comcast or, you know, broadband within the county. Economic development is kind of like on the peripheral of that. But we're not a part of, like, I'll say deep into the conversations, but we do know that it is happening. Personally, I have sent a lot of potential opportunities to that particular group that is working on that. That's how I know that they are doing some research, and hopefully they'll find one that works. A lot with any grant opportunity, you have to look at what the qualifications are, and sometimes we qualify as a community and sometimes we do not. So, but they are actively researching, and hopefully we'll be able to get one and be able to apply. You know, we certainly know, I think some of us with whole teleworking experience, even just with my staff, we have what I call some hot spots throughout the county that either don't have service at all or have poor service. I'll leave it at that. So anything that we can do to be able to expand that and offer this up around the county definitely the better off that we'll be as a whole. But we'll continue to monitor that. And I'll talk to that crew to see if maybe they can provide an update and get it out to the community. So that way the community as a whole knows what's going on with that.
So we have about 3 minutes left, and I just have a couple questions left. Kelly, can you address this one? If gyms are doing outdoor activities with 10 people or less, do we have to submit anything to the county or government for approval?
So that's an excellent question. So if you're outside for a gym, no. At this point, the only thing that we have been instructed, or I want to say instructed, working with planning and zoning on is really for outdoor seating. For folks that are not normally approved for outdoor seating, they need to provide a plan. And when we say a plan, we really just need something down on paper. It does not need to be a formal done by an engineer. It can be hand drawn out, but it does need to show what their plans are based on what the executive order from the governor and information and recommendations from Dr. Polsky. So showing the distance between the tables, showing where the flow of traffic, meaning car traffic, versus where the public can flow through to review. And I will tell you, the team that is working on this, it's not, when we get it, if it doesn't work, it's not just a flat no. They are really working with our local restaurant community to say, okay, this isn't going to work, but if you tweaked it and maybe moved it over here and, tweaked some stuff, this plan will work. So it's really been a back and forth. Our hope, and this is across the board, we want them to be able to get outside. I'll be honest. We really are trying to make it work so those businesses that didn't automatically weren't previously approved what can be approved now. And we're working with several of them have made it through and are good to go, but there is a handful that we're still working with, and we will continue to do that until we can get them fully approved, and then they can operate until we get the next set of guidance from the governor, and then go from there.
Kelly, I have a question about the grant. If a business applied for the state grant list and they ran out of money, what considerations will be given to those Calvert County company applications, and will they have to reapply?
All right, so that is an excellent question, and we have looked at that internally within our staff in economic development, and we also reached out to the Maryland Department of Commerce, and we were able to get a listing of Calvert County businesses that had previously applied at the state level and made it through, hit all the qualifications, would have been approved had it not been for the money running out, basically. So to answer your question, yes, we are asking you to apply, so reapply at the local level, but know that we have the list of that you were pre-approved at the state level. Our requirements basically are the same that Governor Hogan's loan through the Maryland Department of Commerce was, so it shouldn't be a real deep dive for you to be able to pull that information together. And what we're going to reference that list. I'll be quite frank. As soon as we get your application, we're going to reference that list. You've already been vetted and approved at the state level, and we'll be able to quickly turn around and answer for you and be able to get the money electronically transferred to you. So that's really and I believe, Kathy, it was about 140 businesses that had applied, and they got in. I think it was the first 2 days. If you didn't make it in the first 2 days, then the money had run out. So our hope is that those 140 businesses that applied will be able to apply for us, and we'll be able to quickly turn their approval around and get the money right back out to them.
I think we have all the questions answered except for one, and Dr. Polsky, I will ask you to answer the very last question of the day. And that question I think will be simple for you to answer. Swimming lessons are allowed with a minimum of 10 in social distancing. Does the instructor have to teach from the deck, or can they be in the water to teach? Dr. Polsky, if you could unmute yourself.
I'm sorry. Sorry, I just typed that answer in because I wasn't sure you'd have time. The instructor can be either on the deck or in the water. It doesn't matter. The two critical factors are that each of the participants, including the instructor, are at least 6 feet apart, and that the group size, including the instructor, is a maximum of 10 people.
Thank you, Dr. Polsky. We appreciate your time today and doing a second round with us. And I just wanted to reiterate one more time that if your questions were not answered, you can email us and we will happily answer every question that is asked today. And we look forward to phase 3.
Thank you all.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much for participating, and thank you to the library for the partnership. We really appreciate it.